Donald Trump imposes additional 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil, taking the total levy to 50%, which is the highest and at par with only Brazil so far. Tariff order to come into effect in 21 days, that is on August 27th. Trump also indicates secondary sanctions could be announced on the other countries, including China.
India has criticized the US's move as unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. The government says it will take all actions necessary to protect national interests.
Apple commits to invest an additional $100 billion in the United States. This after Trump's plan to impose a 100% tariff on semiconductors and chips, which would exempt Apple because it is committed to building in the US.
Donald Trump says there is a good chance of a meeting with Russian and Ukrainian leaders following what he described as very good talks between his envoy and Vladimir Putin. This comes ahead of Trump's deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face new sanctions.
And stocks on Wall Street end higher as investors weigh Donald Trump's call for a 100% tariff on chips. Asian markets have opened mixed while the GIFT Nifty is indicating a gap down start for our own markets on the back of fresh tariffs that Donald Trump has announced on India.
Good morning. You're watching us here on a power-packed Power Breakfast. I'm Mangalam Malu. With me, Vamakshi as well as Hormaz. We come to you from the Mumbai News Center, CNBC TV 18. Importantly, the big news overnight, Donald Trump, after imposing 25% tariffs on our nation, has gone ahead with an additional 25%. And what do we have for the GIFT Nifty? Down 80 points at the start itself. So let's go straight to the big story then. US President Donald Trump singles out India in his tariff war. He has slapped an additional 25% tariff on all Indian goods, penalizing India for its continued purchase of Russian oil. The new tariffs, which take effect from August 27th, bring the total US tariff burden on India to a staggering 50%. This move comes after Donald Trump, in an interview to CNBC, had said, and I quote, "They're fueling the war machine. And if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy." End of quote. The White House says the order could be revised if India takes measures to align sufficiently with the US. In another instance, the order could be revised if India retaliates. Remember, Trump has upped the ante in his trade war with India, slapping unilateral tariffs after months of stalled talks. The US president accused New Delhi of blocking market access for American goods and took aim at India's growing alignment with the BRICS bloc. India, in turn, called Donald Trump's threats unfair and unreasonable, setting the stage for a fresh showdown in global trade diplomacy.
Well, let's also hear what Trump had to say at a press conference about tariffs on India.
Please. Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance, buys more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours. So let's see what happens over the next.
Sanctions
you're going to see a lot more.
So this is a taste of.
You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see so much secondary sanctions.
Donald Trump warning of secondary sanctions as well. Parikshit is now joining in to detail the India response on the imposed tariffs and also what sources are telling him on the way forward now. Parikshit, good morning.
Yes, India coming up with a strong response, calling the US actions unjustified. They've also gone on to say that it's unfortunate to see US taking actions and imposing additional penalty on India for what other countries have also been doing. So say, for example, China. China is one of the biggest buyers of Russian fossil fuels. It is the biggest buyer. Even when it comes to purchase of crude oil, it was almost, they were buyers of almost 21% of Russian crude in the month of July. So they are big buyers of Russian energy. They are big buyers of Russian LNG, pipeline gas, and other products. Even US, for that matter, continues to import certain products from Russia. The same goes for the European Union. Having said that, India has said that they will continue taking decisions in their national interest and whatever is needed in terms of energy security. It's very difficult for India to cut off ties with Russia when it comes to defense and energy. Our oil imports from Russia have been coming down. This month, they're about 35% of our crude basket. Our oil imports from US are going up. They'll go up 150% year on year in FY26. But we're not able to, and we cannot cut off this relationship with Russia completely. So what really happens next? Well, top sources telling us that India will continue to negotiate to try and have some sort of interim arrangement, try and find a breakthrough with the United States. Sources also telling us that even though there is tension in ties, India maintains very close linkages with several sectors in US businesses and the US industry. We would like that partnership between businesses of those countries to continue in a very healthy manner. So all efforts would be taken in those directions as well. On the 25th of August, we will see the US negotiating team come to India for the 6th round of talks. And let's see what happens. All eyes on that, whether both countries can find some sort of meeting ground over there. But for the moment, we're also told by our sources that the White House wants a call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, which has not happened yet. But the reason why India is not ready for that is because they feel that there should be at least some sort of agreement before we come to the point where there is a conversation between Modi and Donald Trump directly.
Point, Pariksha. Thank you so much for that. So setting the stage for further rounds of talks perhaps as well on the 26th of August. But, you know, the market's taken this in its stride. Remember, the first time the 25% tariff was announced along with an additional levy, we opened lower and thereafter we saw a recovery. The market actually eventually moved into the green as well. And here, after an additional 25% imposition of the duty, we have the gift nifty, which has earlier, which at the start of the show indicated a start 80 points in the red, and the implied open comes up for you. That tells you that there has been a recovery of almost 30-40 points from those lows, and the gift nifty comes up for you now, indicating a cut of just 50 points at the start of trade. It could have been any other day, given the kind of news flow that we've seen overnight. A 50-point downtick, the street would take with both its hands. We also spoke to a slew of experts and diplomats on the developing situation between US and India, along with the tensions in Russia. Listen in.
The president is clearly very frustrated about the unwillingness of the Russians to agree to a ceasefire and to end this war. And that frustration is reflected in these recent decisions. The entire context has changed since a couple of years ago when people were focused on inflation and price controls and all of that. The frustration of the president, I think, has to be addressed in some way because this war has gone on too long. It has killed at least 1 million Russians, if not many more Ukrainians. And I think, there's a point where India and the United States have to have a conversation at the highest level about it. I would also say that these conversations are best done privately. The U.S. and India can't afford to row away from each other.
I had called the penalty illegal, and I will continue to call all of President Trump's actions on the trade issues illegal, completely illegal. But we should certainly not give in, is my second point, because if we give in, it's only a shifting goalpost. Today it is 50, tomorrow it will be 100. It hardly matters. There is a certain line beyond which our exports become uncompetitive. If really we have to take a strong stand, then we must walk out from these bilateral deal negotiations, so-called bilateral deal.
Unless there's more of a willingness on the part of the U.S. side to relent and make some of its own concessions, it could be difficult to come back to the negotiating table. I think in the meantime, here, India's ongoing talks with the EU about the trade deal they're trying to come out with becomes much more important. India needs to look for ways to defray the potential damage or to ease the potential damage of these tariffs that could be coming from the US. And in that regard, getting that deal with the EU by the end of the year, the EU, of course, being another key destination for Indian exports, that would be big. That would be significant. I think it could give India a bit of breathing room. But no, the US-India relationship is experiencing one of its most difficult moments. I'd say its most difficult moment over the last 2 decades of strategic partnership.
50% no trade takes place. So trade is off off the table completely as far as India and US are concerned if these tariffs kicks in. That's number one. Now, how does one take it? I don't think India can sort of accept the Trump's condition, and therefore these 50% will stay where they are, and we are in for a situation where the trade is lost. We'll need to look at other options of exporting these goods elsewhere or consume it domestically till the time the Trump system implodes and the American consumers revolt to make this reverse.
10% of the oil supply of the world comes from Russia. So if Russia were unable to sell oil to China and India hypothetically, there would be a shortage and then the prices would go up. So that is something which will affect the US also amongst other countries. So I think President Trump's decisions are short-sighted, to say the least, and it is going to have an impact on the US economy, and the poorer people of the US will suffer the most.
Well, those were some big voices sharing their opinion on the tariff talks between India as well as the US. But on that note, let's slip into a very short break. Up next, we tell you how these overnight cues impact our own Indian markets. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Most of the Asian screen is showing a tinge of green, and most of the other markets as well. Look at the Taiwanese index, 2.25% higher, and the Hang Seng 2 trading with gains of around 0.3%. The Nikkei is up 0.7, the Kospi is up 0.6. So a positive move across the Asian markets this morning, and the implied open or the GIFT Nifty has recovered from the lows even further now. 40 points lower is what the implied open is suggesting compared to the earlier ticks that were showing an 80-point downtick. But our research team is here to set you up for the trading action today, the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for, and of course the setup on the FNO side of things as well. Firstly, Vivek joins in to get all the market cues we need to watch out for. Vivek, good morning. What's on your radar?
Well, good morning. It's going to be another action-packed day if yesterday wasn't enough. While we're looking at the handover, positive handover coming from Wall Street, oil prices cooled off over 0.5% last evening. But remember, all eyes will be on the Indian market given the fact that there has been an additional 25% tariff. And look out for the whole host of sectors that will be impacted. All of the exporters, textiles, capital goods, automobiles, all of these companies will definitely be impacted in today's trading session. Yesterday, you did see the Indian market end in the negative territory, but significantly off the day's low, led by the large cap recovery. The Nifty back, in fact, managed to end with marginal gains. Now, what is it that we will be watching out for in today's trading session? Remember, domestic specific cues, a couple of important blocks, Eternal as well as Kotak Mahindra Bank are expected to see large block trades. Result reactions, results that came in post-market hours. Some key numbers included Trent, Hero Motor, BHEL, and quite a lot of important results today as well. BSE, Cummins, Godrej Consumer Products, Titan, HPCL, LIC India, all of these companies, quite large names, will be reporting their results today. Like you mentioned, Asian markets are showing a tinge of green. However, Indian markets, while they are showing a small gap down, may see quite a bit of a sell-off in the rest of the session today.
All right, Vivek, thanks a lot for that. We'll monitor how the situation pans out from here on. But a bunch of stocks which will be on our radar. Ria has the list. Ria.
Well, good morning. Let's take a look at the stocks that are going to be in focus today. First up, all eyes on Eternal, that is Zomato. Sources say that Anfin Singapore is likely to sell 1.9% equity of the company via block deals. This is going to be a clean out trade, and the floor price is at a 4.6% discount to yesterday's closing price. For Kotak Bank as well, sources say that one shareholder is likely to sell about 2,066 crores worth of shares of the company via block deals, and the floor price here is at a 2.4% discount to yesterday's closing price. Moving on to the earnings that came out yesterday for Trent, the net profit has been well above the estimates, coming in at around 425 crores. EBITDA margins also healthy at 17.3% versus estimates of about 14%. For Hero MotoCorp, net profit has come in at around 1,126 crores in this quarter. Revenue has been a little bit below estimates at 9,579 crores. For Solar Vineyards, net profit has seen a decrease of around 87% on a year-on-year basis, although the revenue has gone up by around 7.8% compared to Q1 Q1 of last year. For BHEL, the loss has come in at 455 crores versus a loss of around 211 crores in Q1 of last year. Revenue has come in at 5,489 crores in this quarter. For Hudco, the net profit has seen an increase of around 13% on a year-on-year basis, and the NII has gone up by 32.6% compared to Q1 of last year. Moving away from the earnings, Credit Access Grameen is going to be in focus. They have appointed Ganesh Narayan as the MD and CEO of the company for a period of 5 years. This is going to be with effect from the 5th of August. And lastly, Bharat Forge is the one to keep your eye out on. They've entered into a BTA with KSSL for the transfer of the defense business assets for an amount of rupees 453 crores.
Well, thanks for that comprehensive list, Ria. And finally, we now have Sudarshan joining in with cues from the F&O space. Good morning, Sud.
Good morning, Mamaxi. So yesterday, reacting to RBI's status quo policy and ahead of Trump's tariff order, it was not a bad day of trade. Markets saw a big recovery from intraday lows. It was for both Sensex and Nifty, and that was supported by financials. And at the end, we saw Nifty Bank closing in the green. But there was a bit of pressure in the mid-cap index, which saw a cut of more than 400 points. What about today? If there were expectations that GIFT Nifty would indicate a sharp downtick for the market, well, there is a recovery from opening lows. At the opening, GIFT Nifty was indicating that market may open with a cut of around 80 points, but currently it's down around 40 points. So market is expected to open near flat line. As far as flows are concerned, on a regular basis, we are seeing that whatever FIs are selling are being offset by DIs. Yesterday, also in the cash market, FIs have sold nearly 5,000 crore. It was fully offset by DIs, which have bought more than rupees 6,700 crore. In the index futures too, we saw minor buying by FIs. They have bought around 340 crore, and just they have added long positions of around 220 contracts and reduced short positions by around 1,500 contracts. But FIs long exposure remains around 9%. On the option front, action remains between 24,500 to 24,700. That's the reason support for Nifty remains around 100-day moving average, that is 24,450, and resistance remains around 24,800. Stocks in focus, one stock that remains in the band is PNB Housing. Apart from these two stocks that may be in focus is Divi's Labs. Company had reported earnings yesterday. Earnings were weak, even commentary was weak. So we have seen that fresh shorts were added, and another pack that may be in focus is our insurance names ahead of monthly data.
Interesting list there, Sudarshan. Thank you for that F&O update. We'll keep an eye out on these key levels for the index. But moving on then, in the US markets, the Wall Street ended Wednesday's session higher. The Dow also closed higher, but the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq were the outperformers. 0.7% higher for the S&P 500, 1.25% for the Nasdaq as well, and that courtesy the 5% up move seen in Apple after it announced its plans to increase domestic manufacturing by investing another $100 billion, taking their total investment to $600 billion over the next 5 years.
All right. Well, it's ironic that, a day that Donald Trump goes ahead and imposes so many duties, the US markets do well, and the Asian markets also largely in the green, the GIFT Nifty recovering from the lows. We'll take a short break, come back, focus on all the cues from the commodities arena. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's get you some more highlights from the White House. Donald Trump says there is a good chance of a meeting with Russian and Ukrainian leaders following what he described as very good talks between his envoy and Vladimir Putin. This comes ahead of Trump's deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face new sanctions. Here is what he had to say.
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
Well, he also indicated that he would likely nominate a temporary Federal Reserve governor soon and has narrowed down on 3 names for the position of the Fed chair. Let's listen in.
We've started the interviewing process. Scott and I and Howard, a lot of people, JD, we have some great candidates. It's probably down to 3
And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. How are the commodities reacting to all the overnight developments?
Well, the crude is really the focal point of it at all. The prices have seen a decline for a fifth straight day. The prices are trading at a 6-week lows right now. The crude inventory in the U.S. fell by 3 million barrels, and that perhaps is a bit of a support in the markets right now. But the U.S. is expected, after increasing Indian tariffs from 25 to 50% because of buying Russian crude, there could be more announcements coming in from U.S. as secondary sanctions to other countries as well. The U.S. Secretary of State also has said that the U.S. will make an announcement on potential sanctions against Russia itself. Well, that is expected on Friday. So we are far from done when it comes to tariffs. And of course, then the negotiations will begin as well. But at this point in time, it really is about some decline that we've seen in the crude oil prices in the global markets, and the street looking at on what the sanctions could come in as and whether or not it does disturb the crude flow in the global markets there. Having said that, it really is about reactions from Indian associations right now, Hormuz, on 50% tariff. It does make it not viable, not just for the crude imports for India, but also when it comes to gems and jewelry as a sector, as textile as a sector. The Rice Exporter Association also seems to be telling us that exports at these current levels is not viable. Trade does stand suspended at these levels, and it would only be about negotiations that would happen in the third week of August on what really is the outcome from there that the business will restart. At this point in time, there's a lot of edginess, even concerns amongst many of these sectors.
Take that point, Manisha. Thanks a lot for that. Crude lower overnight, but trade disrupted for gems and jewelry, textiles, as well as rice exports. With that, what we'll do is take your leave on this edition of this Power Pack Power Breakfast show, and we'll leave it to the team of Bazaar to take you through the market setup, the market opening, and thereafter the impact that could be on Trump's additional 25% tariffs on India. Thank you for watching.